the Latino Free Minds podcast, your home for bold conversations grounded in faith and fueled by a passion for truth. I'm fired up today because we're continuing something truly special, our Know Your Candidate series, where we're sitting down with the men and women who want to represent you and lead our communities here in California. Let me tell you something straight from the heart. California, our beautiful golden state, is worth fighting for. It's worth saving. Packing up and leaving? That's not who we are. We're a people of resilience, of hope, and of unwavering faith, and we're not giving up on this place we call home. Here at Latino Free Minds, we're rooted in our Christian values: faith, hope, and charity. These aren't just words to us. They're the guiding light for how we live, how we love, and how we lead. Over the next year, we're bringing you face to face with candidates who want to shape California's future. Our mission? To dig deep, ask the tough questions, and give you the clarity you need to make the best choice for your family, your community, and your faith. This isn't about politics as usual. It's about finding leaders who share our values, who see California not just as a state, but as a home filled with families, dreams, and God-given potential. We believe that when you listen to these conversations, you'll be empowered to vote with your heart and your conscience, grounded in the principles that matter most: faith in God, hope for a better tomorrow, and charity towards one another. California's future is in our hands, and together we can choose a path that honors our families, strengthens our communities, and reflects the love and truth we hold dear. So grab a seat, open your heart, and join us for these powerful Know Your Candidate episodes. Let's shine a light, lift our voices, and show the world that California is worth fighting for. Stay with us. This is going to be a journey you don't want to miss. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Latino Free Minds. Today, we are joined by Michael Gates, former Huntington Beach City Attorney, Trump DOJ Deputy Assistant Attorney General, and Republican candidate in California for California Attorney General. Michael has built a reputation as a fighter against Sacramento overreach on crime, sanctuary policies, and local control. We have him on today. We're going to ask him several questions on his run, and we've been, looking forward to this one. So, without further ado, we'll bring him on. Michael, thanks for coming on. How are you doing?
Great, man. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on. It's California has had an issue my whole life, I feel like, with law, law and order, if you will. We right now, Rob Bonta is the Attorney General, and the problem with, in my personal opinion, that I see with a bunch of people elected in office is they're way too partisan to, in a sense, follow the law. To kind of, before we really get into it, I gave a little brief description about you and your experience, but if you want to go ahead and tell the people, who you are and what you've done, and then we'll get into
Yeah, no, that's great. So thank you. So basically, for starters, I'm a family man. I grew up in a very, very large Catholic family myself. And I had 7 siblings, and my parents actually grew up in a very, very blue collar household. My dad oftentimes worked 3 jobs just to make ends meet, because we had a big family and we were living in Southern California. It was a grind. It was not an easy life. Very often we went without. And so it was, but it was a good life because we had our family. And then I got married when I was a young adult. I've been married now almost 30 years. My wife and I have 5 children of our own. We have 4 grandchildren. So God has blessed us tremendously with family. Our family's been very, very fruitful. We have just a great family, still a good Catholic family. So that's something I value tremendously. And that's actually one of the reasons why I'm running for Attorney General, because I see what my family is going through and what I had to go through in California when I was a kid, and how it's changed so much. It was a better life in California when I was a kid. It's gotten a lot worse, in large part because of the leadership in Sacramento. Like you said, Attorney General Rob Bonta, who's been in office for 5 years, has created pretty much a lawless society. There's a lot of chaos here in California. A lot of people point the finger at Gavin Newsom, but it's in large part because Rob Bonta frankly, is just very lawless. He doesn't enforce the law. He doesn't care about everyday Californians. And I can tell you one thing is for sure, he absolutely does not care about the Latino community. But anyway, going back to my experience, I worked in the private sector. I was a trial attorney for a number of years. I became partner at a law firm. And then I ran for city attorney in 2014. So became an elected official, but I was still doing the law. I was the top lawyer in the city of Huntington Beach. Huntington Beach is a pretty large city. It's the 23rd largest city in the state of California out of almost 500 cities. So a lot of responsibility, a lot of work. And I can tell you, I took the job very, very seriously. I started a city-level criminal prosecutor program there, which means that we were tough on crime. We were very, very, very serious about crime, but also the safety of our people in Huntington Beach. And so I was very, very tough on crime. I had an agenda as the top prosecutor in the city of Huntington Beach to get crime. My goal was to get crime in Huntington Beach to zero. And I started that effort in 2017. And since then, crime has dropped tremendously by double digits. And now, out of 500 cities in the state of California, Huntington Beach is considered in the top 10 safest cities out of the entire state. So out of the entire state of 500 cities, Huntington Beach, the city that I led for 10 years as the city attorney and prosecuted crime aggressively, is now in the top 10 safest cities in the entire state of California. So that's an incredibly great accomplishment. Huntington Beach, as we say, is the land of the free and home of the brave, and it's an incredibly safe city to be in right now. And so families are safe, our communities are safe, and businesses are thriving in Huntington Beach, primarily because we're a safe community. But in addition to that, I was also a trial attorney for years. I took many, many, many cases to trial. In fact, I often tell people on the campaign trail right now that I'm a real lawyer, whereas Rob Bonta, who is our current Attorney General, he was a professional politician. He does have a Juris Doctor. He did go to law school, but he's been a professional politician for years. In fact, when he was appointed as the Attorney General by Newsom in 2021, he was appointed from the legislature. So he had been in the state legislature for 10 years, acting and conducting himself as a professional politician, not a lawyer. And then Newsom appointed him as our Attorney General. So I have a really good record. I've got a winning record. Can't think of any case I ever lost in court or at trial. I have a very, very strong winning record in court. And I've argued in many courts throughout the state of California. I've even been at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals arguing cases, and I'm actually admitted to the bar for the United States Supreme Court. So if I had to, I could go back to Washington, D.C. and appear before the United States Supreme Court and argue a case because I'm admitted to the bar, and I would be certified to make argument in that court. So I am a real lawyer. I have a proven track record of being tough on crime, keeping communities safe, being very, very pro-business, pro-family. And so as Attorney General, I want to do the same.
No, that sounds good, man. And no, Rob Bonta, like you said, right? He's a politician more than he is worried about enforcing the law. Right. And so if you want, we get into the questions. I do have a personal question. It's not a gotcha because what did Becerra say? It's a profile piece, not a gotcha, right?
No, hey, bring it. And just so the audience knows, unlike Senor Becerra, I did not get any questions in advance, and I have no expectations for this interview other than being here. I'm happy to be with you and communicating with you and sharing my family, my life story, who I am, and what I want to do to say or to help rescue California.
All right, sounds good. Yeah. Right. I wrote this question down because this is honestly a personal question. This is how I feel. Okay. Yeah. So I looked you up, and I respect that everything that you've done as far as your independent record at Huntington Beach, and you went into the DOJ, and like I said earlier, you've shown that you're able to fight against Sacramento. Right. Me personally, this is me. I support Bianco. And I've had issues with how Steve Hilton has dealt with us, LFM here. My question to you, and it's just because the way, I don't want to make this weird. The way we've dealt with Steve and his team hasn't been the best for us. So when I heard the golden ticket and people were in it, to me, it makes me like apprehensive. Yeah. Right. And it's nothing against you personally. It's more that, Steve, and I don't want to make it weird, but what kind of led you into actually working with Steve? Not that it's bad. It's just, just to kind of,
Yeah.
because I get that question a lot. It's like, oh, Michael Gates seems like a good guy, but why did he join Steve?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's something a lot of people wanted me to ask, and that's something that I kind of want to ask. And
Yeah.
if she's
I'm happy
listening,
to.
Gloria's going to be on next week. I'm gonna ask you too. But go
Very,
ahead.
very,
Sorry.
very happy to. Very, very happy to share, and I'm not ashamed.
Yeah. No, go for it. And I'm not
It's
trying to get you or shame you or anything. It's just
yeah, yeah,
I personally just say, what was the idea behind that, and how did
yeah.
it work out?
So I started talking to Steve. So Huntington Beach had a tremendous amount of success over the years, in large part because of my leadership as city attorney. I was the one who championed the voter ID law in Huntington Beach, and then after it was adopted by the people, defended it in court when Rob Bonta came down to sue Huntington Beach. I was the one who went to court and fought the state over the high density housing mandates that were designed to destroy our city. I was the one that went to court and defended our police officers when they were sued for doing their job, and I won. I have never lost a police case. I was the one that sued the state of California when Newsom came down to shut down our beaches during COVID. So I was the one that championed a lot of fights to protect Huntington Beach. Steve Hilton noticed the success that Huntington Beach was having. And so he had come down to Huntington Beach a number of times, I think as far back as 2023, frankly. And I think that was the year I first met him. In 2024, he had mentioned to me he was considering a run for governor. And he had told me, if you would consider a run for attorney general, it would be great to assemble a team. And actually in 2024, for about 6 to 7 months, I would say, I was sort of like thinking about running for attorney general, what it would look like, what I would need to do, what would my campaign look like, what would my messaging be like, things like that. And so I was sort of like mentally laying the groundwork. And then I got called back to work in Washington, D.C. for the administration, to work at the Department of Justice. So I spent 2025 back at the DOJ in Washington, D.C. Then when I came back at the end of 2025, Steve called me up and said, hey, you're back now. Would you consider jumping back in the race and joining the team again that we talked about in 2024? And I said, yeah, sure. That sounds like a good idea, because I had seen in Huntington Beach the benefits of running as a team in the 2022 elections in Huntington Beach and the 2024 elections in Huntington Beach. I, as an elected official myself, I went out on the campaign trail with, good, solid patriot candidates for city council that loved the city and wanted to be Huntington Beach first. And so I ran with them, and we ran as a package. So we ran as a team then in 2022, and we succeeded. All 4 of the candidates I ran with got elected. Then in 2024, I ran with 3 more patriots, 3 more candidates who wanted to put Huntington Beach first and was willing to fight Sacramento with me. And I got them elected too. So all 7 council members, 4 in 2022 and then 3 in 2024, we were very successful in running as teams. So we ran it as a team both times. Okay, so Steve Hilton saw the benefit of that, saw the strength of that. And so he wanted to model this race for governor after that kind of model. And so when I came back from Washington, D.C. in 2020, at the end of 2025, he talked about, putting this team together again. And so I jumped on the team. I've known Bianco for years. I've known Hilton for years. Steve did ask me to run as a team, and I thought there was a benefit there. Bianco frankly never approached me about the concept. So it was just a matter of when I was ready to launch my campaign here in January of 2026, what for me would be the best way to launch a campaign and to proceed with a strong campaign for Attorney General, even though I was entering the race relatively late in the process. In addition to that, I will say too, that, I know, the Bianco supporters, they've got criticisms of Steve Hilton, and then the Hilton supporters have criticisms of Chad Bianco. I have told both sides for months, there should be no mudslinging, because California is a crazy state. It's a deep blue. We live in crazy town, right? So we should be happy that we have had two conservatives polling at the top of the governor's candidates race, right? At the top of the governor's race. We should be thrilled as Republicans and as conservatives and as patriots that we even have two that are polling very, very high. So that's what I said for months. Now that the polling's changed, though, I'll be honest. I mean, what we don't want to do is split the vote. I mean, Chad has fallen behind by as much as 10 points in many of the polls recently. And I think it is a little bit of a concern that with the splitting of the vote and Chad it appears that victory is further and further away for him. I think the danger that we run is if we split the vote, then we don't get either Hilton or Chad as somebody who wins in June. So I think now the message is a little bit different. I think the message is we need to consolidate our votes around somebody who actually can win. And right now the polling is showing that it is Steve Hilton. So I'm just putting that out there as something for voters to think about. We need to win. And for me, look, it's not about this candidate or that candidate. It's not even about me. What I'm in this race, I am not a professional politician or a career politician. I'm just a fighter. I have a record of fighting. I'm a lawyer who's not afraid to get in the courtroom, a lawyer who's afraid to get in the ring and go to battle. I'm a fighter. I'm just trying to rescue California. So what I tell voters too is, look, this is more than just Bianco. This is more than just Hilton. This is more than me. This is about us trying to pull together as patriots, as Americans, as people who love God and love our country, to rescue California from the nightmare that we've been experiencing over the past few years. And so that's what I would say to your audience is, like, for those of you who are considering Bianco versus Hilton, I get it. I think everybody should be allowed to pick their horse in the race. But at this point, with the polling reflecting what it's reflecting, I think we need to consolidate and get behind the one who can win. And right now the polling is showing that it's decidedly Steve Hilton. So that's just my view, but I wanted to share with you the reasons I teamed up. Yeah.
No, and that makes sense, based on your previous experience in running as a group and it working out. So that's understandable, seeing it from your end. And that was, from my personal point of view and perspective, it's like when I don't like the mudslinging between the two of them, and I was really disappointed when Steve had that debate, and then he, that was the first kind of attack that he put out towards Bianco, because he was on there. Here's what I've told everybody. The Democrats have nothing to offer. I think we all know that. They have nothing to run on because they've been it here in California. And I said this from day one. As soon as debates start and either guy is on stage with all those Democrats are going to look like fools. And, my personal opinion, I think Hilton should have just gone at them. That's how I feel about it. But I get what you're saying. There's different polls out there, and I have heard the sentiment of we got to rally behind one, and like you said, everybody's got their own ability to kind of decide, right? And that's what we've always told people.
But what I would share too for the audience too is, the Attorney General position is not just the lawyer for the governor. The Attorney General has a lot of independent authority. So when people come up to me and they say, "Hey, I'm a Bianco supporter," or, "You're with Hilton, I don't know what I'm going to do about your race," I tell them, I'm like, "Look, you vote for me separately and independently, and your choice for Attorney General is either me or Rob Bonta." So it's not the Chad Bianco versus Hilton fight, and whoever prevails in the governor's race on June 2nd should not be a factor in your decision on who to vote for Attorney General. We absolutely need a new Attorney General, and we need to return to law and order in the state of California. And I will say to your audience too, I know it's probably predominantly Latino. I have already been putting social media posts up, and I don't know if you've gone to my X account or my Instagram account, but I've put messages out in Spanish, in Espanol, and one thing is abundantly clear to me, based on the numbers in California, that the Latino community alone can rescue California. If the Latinos would take a fresh look at these races for state office, whether it's the governor or the attorney general, take a fresh look and ask themselves, has California been better off? Are you better off over the past 5 years because we've had Rob Bonta in office? I think the answer is going to be a resounding no, right? So if the Latino community, which I have been also advocating and telling people, like, look, the Latino community has suffered the most in California at the hands of the policies coming out of Sacramento. Because when we talk about high crime, when we say that California is one of the highest crime-ridden states in the entire country, that's Rob Bonta's fault as the top law enforcement officer. But guess who suffers the most? It's the Latinos. It's the Latino communities that are really the ones that have the violent crime, the increase in violent crime. And so I say this all the time, la comunidad latina está sufriendo mucho in California. And it's large part because Rob Bonta, our fiscal general, is simply he's not fighting for us. No está luchando por nosotros. So, I mean, we need somebody in Sacramento as Attorney General who's going to fight for everyday Californians, who's going to fight for the Latinos, who's going to reduce crime in our neighborhoods so our families are safe, our neighborhoods are safe, and our businesses can thrive. And so that is a whole separate issue that I think Californians, voters, and Latinos, they need to really think about that and sort of set aside this bickering over, should it be Bianco or Hilton? Bonta is a disaster for California. Bonta is a disaster for the Latinos. And so I'm hoping that when I communicate to the Latino community and I speak to them in Spanish and I speak to them honestly about what's going on in California and what I have to offer as a new Attorney General, that they will realize, oh, wait a second, we don't have to go with the same old playbook. We can actually elect somebody new, somebody fresh, somebody who's a proven fighter, and he can reduce crime and make our community safe. I'm hoping that type of thing resonates with voters in California, but particularly the Latinos. And I know if the Latinos would vote for me and put me into office, we can rescue California. But it's in large part, it's going to be up to the Latinos.
I agree. It's one of the message points that we've been putting out. We started putting out late last year. And from our standpoint, on point of how we got to this point, where we're talking about Latinos being a major part or possibility. If they get out and vote, we can actually shift things here in California. On Danny's point, what did change that for us at Latino Free Minds was the shift from Steve Hilton, which was, for me, it was a surprise. On the golden ticket, because I thought, hey, he's coming up in the polls. That's great. We have two Republicans. We have an opportunity to work together here. Not only that, a lot of the guys that were, I don't want to say in the way, but other Republicans that were in the race, some of them started to shift to other things. David Kohlenberg, David Serpa, and other ones just kind of fell in the polls. I don't want to say that they don't have, they're no longer carrying any weight, but the reality is there's almost no chance. I do kind of wish those guys would drop out, but it is what it is. Their names are on that ballot now, and because we've slung some mud. Latino Free Minds has slung some mud. I'm sorry. Is my microphone okay, Daniel?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
We started slinging mud after a lot of the BLM stuff started coming out. A lot of the amnesty stuff started coming out, and I thought to myself in the beginning, I've always been an advocate for immigration reform. I feel it's long overdue. I think that Donald Trump, back in 2017, 2018, when he offered DACA recipients a path to citizenship in exchange for the border wall, not just once, but twice, nobody complained at that point. I think at that point, a lot of people were kind of on board with, hey, we do have a problem here with immigration reform. Something does need to happen. The system is messed up. A lot of the immigrants, because I at the time I was working for a company out of the UK. And a lot of the folks that I was working with were here working, and they were in the green card process, and it was a disaster. I mean, constantly refiling. Lawyer made this mistake. This law changed. The administration did this and that. So it was a lot of bouncing back and forth. And not only that, I mean, I've grown up with family members in the Mexican community that have also been in this process. So I've been an advocate for it. To be fair, Biden really messed things up.
Yeah, he did.
Opening the border up, and you know, I'll get to somebody else from his administration, little HHS secretary.
Calmate, Gio.
Calmate, Antonio. Who was your when you win, Michael, your predecessor. Yeah, he also held the office you're going for. You know, my plan was to continue this. Let's keep going after these Democrats because the people they have out there are weak. They have a lot of things against them. And we put out some videos. I'm not sure if you've seen them, but we really try to hammer things in. When we get the team together and it's kind of like, all right, guys, Steve's doing this, and we kind of sit down. We're like, we don't really want to attack him, and people are like, what are you guys gonna do? Well, we don't want to do it, but it's kind of like, well, Chad's our guy, so we're gonna go after him. And we have videos that we've been holding on to for a long time. We don't want to put him out because he's the Republican candidate. It's not something that we want to do. But we're looking at people like Becerra. Now let's talk about this guy, previous Attorney General.
Let's hit him.
You know what? The fact that he,
at the end of the day,
I actually wanted to go way further than that.
At the end of the day, Gates, there's like 60 people on that ballot. Yeah. I'm still hopeful. I still got faith that the top two are going to be Hilton and Bianco, and then from there,
I do
it's fair game. Possible. Just because there's like 5 or 6 Democrats still thinking they got a shot. Yeah, that's my hope. But again, your stance is understandable. And then there's a lot of people like us that just go, no, let's get both of them through, and it might sound crazy, it might be rare, but it's one of those things where it's like from the beginning, damn it, we have a shot. Let's take it. So sorry, Gio.
I don't want to spend too much time on that because I really want to give the time to Gates here because we got to prove his point.
We're pretty chill dudes.
That's why I'm transitioning to Becerra because he's been in your role before. Yeah. We had to do a lot of digging for Becerra. Obviously, we know about the 85,000 migrant kids. A lot of people say he lost them. There's some times where I get emotional and I write the same thing on TikTok or not TikTok, Instagram, X. I put, he lost 85,000 kids. I mean, that's not the fact. The fact is that he allowed 85,000 kids to come into the United States unvetted, sent to sponsors that were, you just didn't know who they were. We didn't check in on them. And I know he says once they're released to the sponsors, that's not our responsibility. Well, yeah, but you're sending kids out. And they might not be American citizens, but they're still kids. They can't fend for themselves. Right. And it's really unfortunate. I don't know if it's because my algorithm, this is something that I would talk to about people, and a lot of people didn't know about it. And I was like, didn't you see all of the interviews? And I feel like people are so forgetful in the United States. Yeah. We forget what happened 6 months ago, let alone in 22, 23, 24. When these reports were coming out about these migrant kids and the committee, the congressional hearings. We could have really hit him, especially when he was polling low. I thought when Swalwell dropped out, I was looking at my chops and I was like, guys, I know we talked about this tape that was out there. I have the full interview with the girl from
the New York Times.
New York Times. We gotta do something, and everybody's like, Jill, it's too long. It's an hour, and I'm like, I know. We got to get it in 3 minutes. It's gonna be hard, but after so much digging, because this is all buried from YouTube. I can't just go on YouTube and put Becerra leaked tape, HHS failure. Nothing I search for is bringing this up.
Yeah.
The algorithm buries it. It's all the great things about Becerra. He's moving up in the polls. He's doing these interviews. It buries it. I mean, I'm hundreds of pages in deep on YouTube. I can't find it. So I start paying for a lot of these AI tools, and I finally find the tape. And we put it out, and I thought, maybe it's too late. I don't think it is. I'm making phone calls across the United States. Iowa senator, people are in the committee. I'm like, guys, I know you guys don't want this guy to be the California governor, because if he wins, he was the AG before, and you remember all the lawsuits he put against Trump. Yeah. It's just a waste of California money, and it's a waste of time. It's a waste of federal money, because now we're just fighting each other. There's this argument in California that, we fund the federal government by X percent. And I just think, like, well, sure, but we're funding it to sue ourselves at the federal level. It just doesn't make sense. For what? Because of ICE? Because ICE is trying to do their job? That doesn't make sense.
It's the same with Bonta.
I don't want ICE in the streets, but when we have laws, like Proposition 54, what can ICE do? They have to do their job. That's what they've been federally mandated to do. That's the laws that were put in the state. So, I don't want to start with Becerra. I actually want to go way further back, because there was somebody else in this position that you're going for, and her name is Kamala Harris. And I'm sure you've been waiting for the opportunity to talk about the failures that have started, because they went Kamala to, was it Kamala Becerra then Bonta?
Mm-hmm.
And Kamala came in, and she was under immense pressure to release a lot of prisoners.
Mm-hmm.
And we have had sheriffs on the show that talk about crime rates that have been going unaccounted for. This is one of the things I tell people when they go, Riverside has the worst crime rate. And I go, well, sure, that's what they tell us. But what's really being reported? Because when I go to Riverside, it's a complete different feeling than when I go to where Rob Bonta's from, Oakland. Yeah. Oakland's a shithole. I mean, I'm sorry. Oakland's terrible. You can go to Jack London Square, and it's cute. You can go to downtown, and you feel like, ooh, this is nice. And then you see a woman getting punched by a homeless person. I've seen it. Oakland is terrible. It's a mess. And to me, it's like when you consider the failures that have happened in Oakland, when the reports came out that there was like 30-something patrol officers on the street with the budget, which ended up leading to the mayor getting fired, wasn't it? So, I guess it's not just Kamala Harris. It's not just Becerra and Rob Bonta. It's not just the mayors, and it's the whole Democrat system in California. They've gotten comfortable. I don't want to say that the Democrats are useless. I think that they play their part, and they have their position in the country. To me, there has to be a balance. We're on the right side, they're on the left side. Mm-hmm. But at some point, we need to get in control and bring things back. So when Kamala Harris stepped in, they started letting out a lot of prisoners, which, with like Proposition 47,
Proposition 47, Proposition 57, AB 109.
Thank you.
And she was an advocate for so she was sort of the beginning of the end. She was sort of the beginning of this lawlessness in California. And it started with Prop 4757, which she supported. And the Attorney General, as you likely know, the Attorney General is responsible for drafting the ballot titles and then the summaries of the propositions. So she literally lied to the public in California, the voting public, and basically labeled something like Prop 47 as something like safe schools and safe neighborhoods or something like that, even though it did the opposite. It was basically legalizing a bunch of crimes that were formerly crimes. And so it was a reclassification of a whole host of felonies to misdemeanors. And then the prosecutors were told not to enforce those misdemeanors. So it basically made a bunch of what was crime now suddenly not crime and legal to engage in that type of criminal activity.
Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah.
Because you're the Attorney General. To me, I hear misdemeanor.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up; it was still a serious offense.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a crime.
Yeah.
It's not a felony, but
Right.
it's still a serious crime.
Right.
I don't know when this transition started, where people started going, well, they're just misdemeanors.
Right.
And I wonder if this is when it started, because this is the thing we hear on immigration.
Right.
They committed crimes, they have to be deported. Oh well, really? I mean, it's just a DUI. It's just a misdemeanor.
Right.
Somebody could have died.
Yeah.
Kids die. I mean, not just kids. People die from somebody getting hit in a DUI accident.
Yeah.
So
what's more is the prosecutors throughout the state of California had then an agenda to just basically not take misdemeanors seriously, not prosecute them. The Attorney General is the top prosecutor for the state, and the Attorney General has purview over all 58 counties, and that includes all their 58 district attorneys and all the state's 58 sheriffs. And so when the Attorney General, like Kamala Harris then, and then Becerra and now Bonta, are completely absent on enforcing crime, and they actually issue directives or encourage prosecutors to not even prosecute misdemeanors or enforce the law, then that is carried through like systemically throughout the state of California. And that's why the Attorney General is such an important role in the state, because a lot of people think on the one hand, well, maybe it's just the lawyer for the governor, which is wrong. I already explained that. But then they also think, well, the Attorney General is going to be in some ivory tower in Sacramento, and it's going to be disconnected from the real world. So what can the Attorney General actually get accomplished? Well, that's also false. The Attorney General has direct purview over all 58 sheriffs and all 58 district attorneys. And the Attorney General should be working with the DAs, all 58 of them, and the sheriffs every single day to set enforcement priorities and to ensure that there's a consistent enforcement across the entire state of California on all laws. And that's why, I consider myself and my supporters and the public should consider me the law and order candidate, because when I'm Attorney General, I'm going to take it very seriously. In fact, I've said to many, many people on the campaign trail that when I have purview over all 58 district attorneys throughout the state of California and all 58 sheriffs, I am going to issue enforcement directives and set a standard throughout the state of California for attacking crime and reducing crime. And if all of my prosecutors throughout the state of California, that includes the 58 DAs that I mentioned, but then all of their prosecutors, if they don't have an agenda to get crime in their jurisdictions, crime in their cities, crime in their counties to zero, they're not doing their job right. Every prosecutor should be advocating for prosecuting crime and prosecuting crime so effectively that we reduce crime. And like I said, that matters, because in Huntington Beach, I did that starting in 2017. And to your point, to your question, that was in response to the passage of Prop 47 and 57, thanks to Kamala Harris, and the increase in crime everywhere. Crime was rising in Huntington Beach. There's 200,000 residents and 15 million visitors a year. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of people. So if there's potential for an increase in crime, Huntington Beach is a prime example of the potential for an increase in crime. And rather than just managing it, I wanted to attack it. She actually started a city-level criminal prosecutor program, like a baby DA in my city. And we were prosecuting crime very aggressively. We reduced crime by double digits. And now, like I said, since 2017, Huntington Beach is in the top 10 safest cities in the state of California out of nearly 500 cities. So my point is, as AG, when I changed the culture, but also changed the direction to my district attorneys and my sheriffs throughout the state of California, we can easily reduce crime. And I think Prop 47 and 57 I think it's bad law. I think the public was duped by Kamala Harris into voting for them. And I will advocate in the future, when I'm AG, I will advocate for future ballot measures that reverse Prop 47 and 57 so that we can make crime illegal again and get back to the business of law and order and keeping our communities safe.
Yeah, and based on what you said too, it's, I think it was somewhere between 68 to 70% of Californians voted to pass Prop 36,
Over 70.
which goes into that enforcement of laws, right? And I think when people are going to, like you said, decide for attorney general, do they want to stay with the guy that was in there when laws weren't getting enforced and, the people had to kind of force their hands? Or do you want someone in there that's, more than likely going to go in there and really make Prop 36 happen the way it should have happened, right?
Not to tag team against Rob Bonta. I don't want to be a mean guy to Rob Bonta, but do we really want to vote for the guy that not only was afraid to prosecute crime, but when we decided as a state overwhelmingly that we needed to bring those rules back, he did not push against Newsom for a lack of funding. Is that the guy we want to bring back? I mean, don't they want to listen to the citizens? Aren't they supposed to listen to us, Michael?
Yes, and Rob Bonta is not enforcing Prop 36, and I've already pledged on the campaign trail to many, many audiences that I've had over the course of the past few months that on day one, I'm going to enforce Prop 36 along with my sheriffs and my district attorneys throughout the state. We're going to enforce Prop 36 on day one with or without funding. We're going to make it happen because we have got to make our community safe again. And I'm just going to tell you that it's the Latino community, again, that's suffering the most. They are most in need right now of assistance and law enforcement and criminal law enforcement to get their community safe. And the communities that are going to benefit the most from tough law enforcement policies like mine and from the enforcement of Prop 36, the communities that are going to benefit the most are the Latino communities. So look, the Latinos can rescue California. I'm just going to keep repeating that. And the numbers are this. In Los Angeles alone, I don't know if you guys know this, but in Los Angeles alone, the Latinos are 40% of the vote. 40% of the vote. Imagine if just half of those individuals, Latino individuals who normally impulsively vote Democrat, stop for a moment in this election, think about how consequential this election is, and think, look, maybe we need new leadership, right? Like maybe let's give this Gates guy a try and see if we can have safer communities. Dude, we can win this election in a landslide. So it could easily be up to the Latinos to turn California around to rescue California.
It's a huge reason of, kind of what we do here at Latino Free Minds is we're providing you more information because last I looked up was there are 1.4 million independent Latino voters, meaning you can get them to think, hey, maybe this guy makes more sense, right?
Yeah. Let me just say, I'm not saying that they're not thinking at all. I'm just saying oftentimes when politics get involved, people can be swayed by their party to continue to vote in the same way. And what I'm asking for are for the independents and even the Democrat registered Latinos to just stop for a moment, try to block out all of the noise and think about what's going on in their community, think about why they're suffering, and then think of which candidate is going to offer them some relief, which candidate is going to offer them some assistance, which candidate is going to fight crime and be tough on crime and make their community safe again. Rob Bonta has had 5 years in office to make the Latino community safe, and he has done nothing about it. I say in my videos, especially the ones that I do in Spanish directed to the Latino community, Rob Bonta has done nothing for your community, absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. And that's why California generally is in the top 6 most dangerous crime-ridden states in the entire country. So there's a lot at stake here, you guys, and our communities are not thriving right now.
Yeah, and speaking of crime, I actually do want to go back to Becerra because I did a video on him in November last year about the scandal with his chief of staff and how they took his campaign funds. And, we're talking about crime, right? Misdemeanors that people, everyday people commit. But, we have this question from our friend Karina Powers, who's the chair at RNHA, geez. And she wants to ask something in regards to that, which is, how would you combat corruption, fraud, and misuse of tax dollars inside state agencies? Because there is also that crime that gets ignored.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I have a response, which is to say, on the one hand, the controller and the controller's office, they're the ones that are supposed to be monitoring and auditing every organization and agency that takes state dollars. So when the controller's office, if it does its job, they're the ones that find the fraud or should be finding the irregularities when it comes to the spending of state dollars or state funding. And normally, if the government is functioning properly, the controller will find where the problem areas are, package the findings up, and send them over to the prosecutor's office, to my office, to the Attorney General's office. And then what I would do is identify the individuals responsible for the waste, fraud, and abuse, and I would prosecute them. Having said that, even if the controller's office doesn't want to do that job, which clearly she's not doing right now, because we see the waste, fraud, and abuse amassed to nearly $500 billion over the past 5 years of waste, fraud, and abuse. Mm-hmm. I can do that job on my own. I can investigate. And I can tell you that when justice for me looks like this, justice is not the lengthy and protracted investigations that lead to nowhere. We have seen that far too often. I'm going to be very, very serious. We're going to investigate. We're going to be diligent. We're going to be swift. And we're going to put people behind bars. And more than that, that money is out there, maybe not all of it, but I'm going to find that money. I can use the criminal justice system to go out and find the small islands, the yachts, the mansions, the bank accounts. I can seize those assets, liquidate them, and I can return the money back to the taxpayer. All of that is possible through the criminal justice system. I will use the criminal justice system, and I will be very, very aggressive at getting the taxpayer money back. And imagine nearly $500 billion. Imagine if I only got 25 cents on the dollar. That's still the return of thousands of dollars per taxpayer. That's a tremendous amount of money that we can recover, even if it's 25 cents on the dollar. So I'm going to be very, very aggressive. What the audience should know too, when I go to Sacramento, look, I'm an everyday Californian. I'm angry like every other everyday Californian. I'm just a regular guy who happens to be blessed with a great family and a great legal career. But I've got the same point of view as all the other voters. I want justice. I want my money back. So when I go to Sacramento, I'm not going there to make friends. I can assure you. I'm sure I'm going to make plenty of enemies. I'm going there to fight for everyday Californians, and I'm going to use the criminal justice system to get justice for the taxpayer and hopefully get recovery for the taxpayer.
Yeah. I like that, and I love how you said that you're going to go after these guys and their foreign yachts, and what I really like about because it gets me thinking about a certain guy that he's avoiding paying taxes. A billionaire that might be running for governor of California. When we put his video, it might have to start with Michael Gates saying that. Put a little fear into Tom Steyer.
Yeah. Look, I am absolutely, you can ask people in Huntington Beach and even Orange County, California. I'm a force to be reckoned with. I take no BS. I take no for an answer. I'm a true fighter, and I'm going to risk it all to do right by the taxpayer, to do right by the voter, and frankly, this is part of rescuing California. If Rob Bonta gets reelected, ladies and gentlemen, and we continue down this same old path, I mean, California will be destroyed. I mean, just look at voter ID, for example. Voter ID is on the ballot. It's got 85% support in the polls. Voter ID will pass in California. It will be the law of the land, but there will also be challengers to it, right? People will sue. They'll step up and sue to challenge the law. Well, who is supposed to go to court when that law is challenged? It's supposed to be the Attorney General, Rob Bonta. Rob Bonta is not going to go to court to defend it, so that law will fail. So we're going to continue, and it's more than continue. We're going to compound the lawlessness in California. We're going to compound the lawlessness if Rob Bonta gets reelected. We absolutely, it's so critical in order to rescue California that we have a new Attorney General.
Now, Michael, I'm going to assume that most Californians are going to use common sense. A lot of them are going to go, you know what? This guy that didn't listen to us when we voted in Proposition 36, we want him out. Who's the alternative? Michael Gates. What is he? He's a constitutional guy. He could actually go work on the Supreme Court if he got called up for it. I have this selfish question, but I want to first ask, what are your thoughts on the Second Amendment? A lot of our listeners are gun owners, and they want to
Yeah,
know your thoughts.
I love this question because I love this answer. I'm absolutely an advocate, a proponent, a defender of the Second Amendment for a number of reasons. One, first of all, like you said, I'm a constitutionalist. I love the Second Amendment. We should embrace the Second Amendment, if for no other reason with regard to firearms. It is the law of the land. It is the U.S. Constitution. That is our constitutional right. The permit that I need to carry a gun is the Second Amendment. So I'm an advocate for the Second Amendment. But for the gun owners and the gun lovers, which I'm a gun owner as well, what they need to know too is I am so serious and committed to restoring the Second Amendment in California that I am going to be very, very aggressive with attacking what California is currently doing, which is basically canceling the Second Amendment. So Rob Bonta has been engaged in a lot of litigation on the Second Amendment. I'm going to dismiss those lawsuits and reverse course on those challenges. But the other thing I'm going to do is we're going to go through all of the state laws on guns, and we are going to see, and we're going to analyze every single law on a case-by-case basis to see where those laws could either be suspended and not enforced by a executive order from the governor because it's violative of federal law, or if those laws could be changed or modified to become more compliant. Now, that's just a start. What I tell people on the campaign trail, just to put it simply, on day one, when I'm the Attorney General, all 58 of my sheriffs, remember I have purview over all the sheriff's departments, all 58 of my sheriffs are going to be notified by me in writing that if they don't issue concealed carry permits within 90 days, they are in violation of the Second Amendment. Because we have sheriffs like in Los Angeles County, where it can take 9 months to 3 years for an applicant to get their CCW or their concealed carry. It could take 9 months to 3 years, and that's after spending a couple $1,000s in fees and application fees, and then after hours and hours and hours of training. And that's the government literally standing in the way of the Second Amendment, our right to bear arms, and that's going to come to an end on day one. Now, many jurisdictions get those CCWs issued faster than 90 days, which is great. Some jurisdictions do it in weeks. That's amazing. But for those that go beyond 90 days, I see that as a violation of the Second Amendment, and all of my sheriffs are going to know it, and they're going to have to change what they're doing in order to come into compliance with the Second Amendment.
Yeah, and that's something that, I think this would, in a sense, have to take some legislature, right? Because I was looking at the gun roster, right, and that's something that has to go away through legislation. But the as far as I understand, the AG can determine what they're gonna what's the word I'm looking for here, enforce of those requirements, like microstamping this or that or whatever makes the gun get on the roster. I hope that one day here in California that we are just constitutional carry and we don't need a license. That's my hope, because to me, like when I see states doing that, to me, in my mind, that's the ultimate Second Amendment right there. But like you said, it's a start, right? We got to start somewhere.
That's right.
And I hope one day we end up there.
Yeah, and those listeners who agree with you and agree with me about the Constitution and the Second Amendment and the right to carry, they have to know that we are dealing with decades and decades in California of laws that have basically been building up, piling on to erase and to cancel our constitutional rights. And so it's going to take some undoing of a lot of that. It's going to take some time, and there's some process involved. But I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I did want to follow up with that, because I am a big fella, and when I have to like appendix carry and sit down at the same time, it's not fun, especially when it's hot. It gets hot here in Fresno, 110, 115 degrees. It's not fun, and I would much rather just carry it on my side. But
I've been in Fresno a couple times already. It would be fun to come into studio with you guys.
Oh yeah,
it would be good. It's something we're trying to get set up here, actually. So I think a lot of our listeners like that it is something that you're willing to consider as constitutional carry. For me, I think you should have a permit. That's me personally. Nobody hold that against me. That's my personal opinion.
I
don't make laws. I'm not running for attorney general. But open carry for me is a big one. Like if I could just have it on the side, and I think a lot of people would look at that and be like, you know what? There's no police officers here. There's no deputies. There's no sheriff. But that guy right there, I don't want to start nothing with him. I think that is a big deal. So I want to shift it and bring it in more recently. A lot of the people right now are thinking about this Nick Shirley guy that's come to California, and we followed up and put out a video about what Nick Shirley found in California. Now, obviously, he found the stuff going on in San Diego, but then he quickly went to something going on in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. A lot of hospice cares facilities that were at one address, and nothing was really happening there. And he blew the whistle there, but everybody was pretending like it didn't happen. Then all the other news organizations showed up, and then suddenly a man by the name of Bonta showed up. You want to talk about what Nick Shirley found there and how Rob Bonta followed up? And I don't know if we want to get into talking about how his wife went up to Sacramento and wrote a law to counter what happened.
Well, yeah, I think you have to, and here's why: because it completes the picture of how lawless Rob Bonta is, and how lawless California is, and then also to, in a way, our point about the Second Amendment, how much the leaders in Sacramento, including Rob Bonta and his wife Mia Bonta, they don't care about our constitutional rights. They want to disregard them. They want to attack them, and they think they can do it without inhibition, without any interference. They think they can just do it unimpededly, go after our constitutional rights. And in this case, it's the First Amendment, the freedom of speech and the freedom of press. So, as you know, there's been stories about in-home healthcare fraud in California, hospice care fraud in California, homelessness fraud in California. So there's fraud in so many different areas of our society here in California. A lot of it is at the hands of the government, including and especially in Sacramento. And so Nick Shirley comes in and he starts discovering all of these fraudulent hospice locations. And what's really interesting is Donald Trump also put together a task force headed by J.D. Vance to come into California and to do some investigation with regard to where the Medicare spending is going, where would the fraud be, what's going on here in our systems. And what the federal government found was that in Los Angeles County alone, there were over 440 fraudulent hospice companies or locations. So there are hundreds of fraudulent hospice locations throughout the state of California. Nick Shirley found a whole host of them, and then the federal government found a whole host of them. So hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and they're saying maybe even thousands of fraudulent hospice locations or companies in the state of California. And what does Rob Bonta do about a week or two after Nick Shirley puts out his videos that he captured in Los Angeles and San Diego? Rob Bonta puts together a press conference where he said, we found 14 fraudulent hospice companies in the state of California. Well, what's weird about that is, first of all, he's a day late and a dollar short. 14 locations is nothing. He claims to have done an investigation, yet the locations that he found you could find in the public record. If you literally just searched in the documents that are publicly available, you could find those locations. It doesn't take a genius, and it certainly doesn't take an attorney general to do an investigation to find those. So the whole press conference was a sham. But here's what's more interesting, Gio, that maybe, I'm connecting some dots here for you. A week before that press conference, too, there was the very first poll came out on the attorney general's race. And Rob Bonta saw for the first time that his poll numbers were in the toilet. So he was only at 40% support in California for his reelection. That's a disaster for an incumbent in California. 10 points behind break even. He was at 40%. So what does he do? He scrambles to put together this press conference where he announces these 14 fraudulent hospice locations as if suddenly now he's being tough on crime. What the audience should know too, though, is he was in office for 5 years. And all of these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of fraudulent hospice companies throughout the state of California, they came into being on Bonta's watch. So they came into being over the past 5 years on Bonta's watch. Here's another data point. The state auditor came out with a report a week or two ago that indicated that state leaders, Bonta and Newsom alike, had been notified of this kind of fraud for years, and they willfully ignored it. So the state auditor found through its investigation that state leaders, Newsom and Rob Bonta, our Attorney General, had been notified about this fraud of our taxpayer money for years prior, and they did nothing about it. So Rob Bonta and his silly little press conference was obviously a political stunt. It was meant for the cameras, and it was insincere. In fact, I call it fake. And the reality is, he has known about this waste, fraud, and abuse for 5 years, ever since he was put in office by Newsom in 2021. In fact, I tell people too, I think he was put in office by Newsom in 2021 because they knew this fraud was going to happen, and they wanted it to occur. They wanted to allow it to occur, because what they're finding too, what we're finding, what Nick Shirley's finding, what the federal government's finding, is that money that was funneled to the fraudulent hospice locations, it was actually refunneled or continued to be funneled to partisan organizations that were designed to help and set up to help the Democrat politicians. So that's why they wanted that money to be funneled that way or laundered that way. So they had an agenda, and Rob Bonta has been in office for 5 years to run cover for that corruption. We're seeing that now. We're seeing that now.
Yeah, it's things. They're dots that I started drawing last year. It's common in California because we see money going into certain places. A lot of people were saying there was this. It was popular at some point last year where people were saying, "Well, California is using federal funds for illegal immigrant healthcare," and California was like, "No, we don't do that. We don't use money for illegal immigrants in healthcare." And I kept hearing that, and we went live, and I went in on it, and I was like, "Guys, they're right. They're not using federal funds for immigrant healthcare. We need to stop accusing them of that. It's absolutely not happening."
Yeah.
And I just threw it out there. I said, "But I bet you I know what might be happening. They're probably, I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but they're probably using state funds for illegal immigrants, and not just for federal for healthcare. They're probably using it for SNAP benefits. They're probably using it for other welfare programs, and they are not using federal funds. They are not lying to you, but they are using federal funds to fund other things that they can legally fund at an overflow, so that they can use less state funds for that to move to these other programs for illegal immigrants."
Yeah.
And I remember putting that out there, and then a few months ago, it came out when Donald Trump came in office, and I think he sent JD Vance to California. I'm not sure if you were part of that, because I know you were working as with the at the federal level as Attorney General. A lot of things came out of California, and I kind of just sat back watching the news like, "Yeah, I told you so. I knew it was going to happen." And when I heard Nick Shirley was coming to California, I was like, "Guys, we already know this is happening."
Yeah.
I mean, Nick Shirley doesn't have to come here to tell us what we already know. We're failing to we're not looking at the audit reports. And they're telling us what is happening here in California, and we're just like this. I mean, the voters can look at it, but we refuse to look at it. But when somebody comes, suddenly we're like, "Who's this Republican MAGA guy that's over here telling us what's happening?" And now here's Michael Gates, who can finally push back.
Well, we have a real opportunity here, ladies and gentlemen. And like I said, it's the Latino community. If they can step up and rescue California, if California is rescued, I'm going to be thanking the Latino community because they're the ones that really can make the difference in this election for sure.
They certainly are. But in my opinion, everybody needs to vote.
Yes.
And I don't tell people, hey guys, go vote Republican. I tell people, hey guys, go get informed. Find out what the incumbents are doing, and find out what the guys that are running against them can do. Look at their records. Because to me, I go down the list and I'm like, this guy's better. This guy's better. Michael Gates is better than Rob Bonta. Either of those Republican candidates are better than all of those Democrat candidates. I mean, it's just right down the list.
Yeah.
So look, don't listen to me. Just go get informed. Find out who for your values, who is the best candidate. And I bet you're going to come across, 95% of your list is going to match up with mine. And I bet you Michael Gates is going to be on that list. So Michael, I don't want to hog up your time because I know how busy you are. I think I probably watch like 3 of your interviews a day. Not that many, but I do see you are very active. So I know you're home. So I want to allow you to spend the time with your family. So before we close out, I want to give you the opportunity to send your message. What do you want the voters to think about when they're sitting there staring at their ballot and wondering who they need to vote for as Attorney General of California?
Thank you. And I appreciate this time with you. It's been incredible. I do hope the audience finds it valuable. I think what I want them to know is we do have a real opportunity here right now to rescue California. It's sort of on life support in my view. And I'm an everyday fighter. Like I said, I grew up in a very working class family, grinding it out every day. I put myself through school and been blessed by God with my family and my career, and I'm ready for this. And so if everybody who is listening looks at the candidates on the ballot and they look at Rob Bonta and they look at me, if you think the past 5 years has been good to you and good for you in California and you want to vote for Rob Bonta, okay. But I think most Californians believe that California's been headed in the wrong direction. People are not happy with California right now. Most people are suffering. The Latino community is suffering a lot right now. They have education needs. They have law enforcement needs in their community. They suffer from high crime. They're actually suffering quite a bit. And I'm hoping that the audience and the community says, hey, look, this Michael Gates guy, he's the law and order candidate. He can return California to a law and order state. And by doing so, he can make our communities safe again. And then our families will be safe again. And then our businesses will thrive as well. So I'm just hoping that they take a good moment and really think about it. Has their life been better the past 5 years or worse? Most say it's been worse. And if that's the case, then vote for me so we can make it better. We can turn California around. But it does take a new attorney general. It does take new leadership. So I have a website if you want to go visit to my website and find more. It's gates4ag.com. That's Gates, the number 4ag.com, GATES, the number 4ag.com. Or you can find me on social media if you search. I'm on X, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Instagram is michael.e.gates, and my X is Michael Gates ESQ for Esquire. So it's Michael Gates ESQ. I would love to have you join my social media, follow me, repost, and interact with my accounts so that we can grow the team. But it's great to have you. Thank you, gentlemen, for having me. And I hope I can come back. The election, the general election is not till November, so you got many, many months. I'd love to come back and talk to your audience some more.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of questions that I still have. And I think I would be doing a disservice to the Latino community if I don't ask one more question.
Okay.
When it comes to these Senate bills, as an example, California Senate Bill 54, and California legislators making it difficult for law enforcement to work with ICE. What can the Attorney General do for that?
So the SB 54 is unconstitutional. It's violative of federal law. As you mentioned earlier in the program, that the federal government has exclusive purview. There's federal mandates under federal law for federal enforcement to pursue criminals. Excuse me. And so that's a federal mandate. The state cannot get in the way or interfere with that. And so as Attorney General, what I can do is work with my sheriff's department and my district attorneys to make sure that we're complying with federal law, that federal agents, when they need to come into our jails and our prisons, that they can pick up individuals, these violent criminals that are subject to ICE detainers, pick them up and peacefully transfer them to federal custody. And then the federal government can then process them and in some cases deport them, so that it's done all peacefully. It's the peaceful enforcement of all laws, including federal and state laws. What we don't want is, like you also referenced in the beginning of the program, is to have ICE enforcement out in our streets in conflicts with the media or in conflicts with politicians or protesters. We do not want that. That's dangerous for everybody. We need to enforce all laws and fight crime by enforcing all criminal laws. But that does include the state not interfering with the federal efforts to enforce criminal laws. Yeah. And so I absolutely can ensure that that our law enforcement, our sheriff's department, and our district attorneys support as well the peaceful enforcement of all laws, including federal immigration law.
I love that answer, Michael, because it is something that does actually affect the Latino community, because illegal immigrants do live among the legal California citizens. So when ICE is out there and there's funny business going on with protesters and people start feuding, it creates a problem in our communities. And we don't want that.
And look, if anybody's wondering, like, what is Michael Gates saying? How does that work? It's easy. The state sanctuary state law came into effect in 2017. Prior to that, so before 2017, like for instance, when Obama was president, his federal agencies enforced criminal law. And guess what they did? They would go into cities and counties and they would enforce federal immigration law to get violent criminals out of the country. And what did they do then? They would go into jails and prisons and they would apprehend these violent criminals that were subject to ICE detainers under the control of local authorities. So it was done peacefully, it was done quietly, and it was done effectively. And Obama did that. He deported almost over 8 million people, tens of thousands of which were violent criminals. Obama did that, and he did it through peaceful enforcement. That's all we're looking at right now. That's what we want to do, is go back to that peaceful enforcement of all laws. Why? Because, like I have been saying throughout this interview many times, it's the Latino community that suffers from the violent criminals the most. Yes. And so their neighborhoods and their communities are crime-ridden with violent criminals. So it isn't so much that we want to go after every single illegal. That's not the point, because the state doesn't even enforce those laws. What's the point is we want to get violent criminals off of our streets so that our abuelitas can walk to the local store sin miedo, right? We want them to walk. We want them to be able to leave the home without fear. Look, there is no freedom in America if Latino families are basically trapped in their home because they're afraid to go out in their neighborhoods and out in the streets. That's not freedom. That's not the American dream. And so what we will do when we peacefully enforce all laws and allow the federal immigration authorities to get violent criminals out of our streets and out of our, and out of our communities, we're actually restoring the freedom that America promises to our communities. So look, people in Sacramento believe, for instance, that the Latino communities, I guess they believe that they should be suffering from high crime and they should be trapped in their homes, afraid to go out into the street or to their local parks or walk to their local grocery stores. I believe they think that they should. I don't think they should. I think the Latino communities, our families, should be free. They should experience freedom by enjoying their streets, enjoying their parks, enjoying their neighborhoods, enjoying their business districts, and having their small businesses thrive. A lot of mom and pop stores, a lot of mom and pop businesses are shutting down because their business districts or their communities are not safe because of the violent crime. So when we peacefully enforce all laws, our families are safe, our communities are safe, and our businesses thrive.
Mm-hmm. And again, beautiful answer. because it affects the Latino community. We need to consider that when we go into those polls. Don't just look at Bonta and think, is that Spanish? Doesn't matter.
He's
Gates.
Filipino.
Gates
He's
has
Filipino.
Gates
Yeah.
has they put the Z on Gates has backwards. He's the candidate too now. No,
Miguel got this.
in all seriousness, I
Voto por
have
mí,
I have a
Miguel got
very good
this.
feeling for the primaries.
Yeah.
I would love to have you back before the general election, much far before, because there's a lot of things that I want to bring up. I don't really want to target Mr. Wiener up there in the Bay Area, but he's got a lot of bills out there that I really want to talk about with you.
Okay.
So, yeah, I appreciate you coming on. We close out every episode with a prayer.
Okay.
I always offer the guests the opportunity to pray. I've seen you do it in some of your videos in Spanish. Do you want to close up with a prayer? I love closing it out, but if you prefer,
I'm happy to offer a short prayer for sure.
let's go.
Okay. All right. God, thank you for this time. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with the Latino community. Thank you for Dan and Gio for what they're doing to get the word out, to educate the people of California. We just pray, God, that you give us the strength, the fortitude, and the protection to rescue California. Because we know this is ultimately a spiritual battle between good and evil. And we need your guidance, your wisdom, your fortitude, your protection to proceed forward, to do your will, and to rescue California. We cannot do this alone. We lean on you. We need you. We need your help. And we ask for your blessing. We ask Our Lady of Guadalupe to pray for us also. Ruegue por nosotros. We need your prayer. We need your help. We need your grace and guidance. So thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
In the name of Jesus.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate you coming on. I honestly, I appreciate you closing it out in prayer. It's for me, it's a big deal. So thank you.
Thank you.
And listeners, seriously, if you haven't voted for Michael Gates yet, get that ballot out and seriously consider it. I'm just gonna tell you, I voted for Michael Gates.
Thank you.
I did. Daniel,
Gracias.
Did you already vote, Daniel?
I haven't filled out my ballot, but I got it now, so I got to go through it.
Who are you voting for?
I'll fill it out. There's this guy named Bonta. No, I'm just kidding.
This guy named Bonta, I want to smack around. No, I want him.
No, I'm messing around. No, Michael, I appreciate your time and I like what you said. So, yeah, definitely, you'll have my vote.
Thank you. Gracias. Okay, tenga buena noche.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Peace be with you.
Thank you.